The galaxy was dying. Stars that once burned bright now glowed dim, like candles at the edge of their life. Wrecks of warships floated in the void, twisted metal, shattered hulls, and silent beacons flashing distress signals that no one would ever answer. For 5 long years, the Galactic Alliance had been fighting a losing war against a force no one truly understood, the Vora swarm. The Vora did not talk. They did not send messages. They simply arrived, and everything disappeared. Entire planets were consumed. Armadas burned in minutes. And now, only a few scattered fleets remained, hiding, surviving, preying. On the edge of the war zone, an alien captain named Rilvor sat in the command chair of his broken ship. Siran's hope. His crew worked quietly, their eyes hollow from years of loss. "Captain," said his second officer softly, "no more reinforcements. The Council has abandoned this sector." Rilvor closed his eyes. His claws tightened on the armrest. He looked out the viewport, the endless darkness of space. "Then we die here," he said simply. "But we die fighting." His words were brave, but his voice trembled. They all knew the truth. No one could stop the Vora. Then something strange happened. The sensors flickered. A faint signal appeared, deep, distant, but clear, a transmission. "Unidentified fleet detected entering Sector 7, the AI announced. "Source unknown. Configuration unknown," Rilvor frowned. "Unknown? That's impossible." "Identify it." The sensor officer's eyes widened. "Sir, the signal matches old human encryption codes." The bridge went silent. Even the air seemed to freeze. "Humans?" someone whispered. "They're extinct. For over a century, no one had seen a human vessel. After their last great war, the solar collapse, they had vanished beyond the edge of known space. The galaxy believed they were gone forever, but now something massive was coming. At first, they saw nothing, just the darkness of space. Then slowly, the void began to change. Tiny white dots appeared in the distance. Then hundreds, then thousands, ships, massive warships, each one the size of a small moon, sliding out of warp space in perfect formation. Their hulls shimmered black and silver, with markings no one had ever seen before. And at their front, a single Titan led them, a ship so large that it blocked out the stars. Its name burned across every scanner, HSS Leviathan. The communications officer turned pale. "They're hailing us, Captain." Rilvor hesitated. "Put it through." The voice that came through was calm, human, but powerful. "To all remaining Allied vessels," the voice said, "this is Admiral Marcus Thane of the Terran Battle Fleet. You are entering human command space. Stand down and pull back. We will handle this." The alien bridge crew looked at each other in disbelief. Handle this? Against the Vora? Impossible. But then something began to change. The human fleet moved, slow, controlled, unstoppable. Formations aligned with perfect precision. Thousands of ships, their thrusters glowing blue and gold, spreading across the void like a metal storm. And then the Vora arrived. The enemy came like a black wave. Billions of living machines, crawling, flying, spreading like infection through the stars. The darkness lit up with red fire as the swarm attacked. Rilvor whispered, "They're going to die." But the humans didn't move back. They didn't retreat. The Leviathan's engines roared to full power. From its underbelly, a massive cannon unfolded, longer than any ship in the Alliance fleet. Its energy readings went off the scale. "What is that?" The science officer shouted. Rilvor just stared. "That's not a weapon. That's a star." And then it fired. Light, pure light. A single beam erupted from the Leviathan, cutting across the void like a blade. Everything it touched, every Vora ship, every shadow, turned to dust. The stars themselves flickered from the brightness. In seconds, the battlefield was gone. No debris, no enemy, just silence. The human fleet didn't even slow down. Their comms came online again. "Admiral Thane, to all survivors," the voice said. "The Vora are no longer your concern. You are safe now. Begin evacuation of your wounded." The message ended. Rilvor couldn't speak. His crew stared in silence, tears in their eyes, not of fear but of awe. "They wiped them out." one whispered. In seconds. Rilvor leaned back in his chair, eyes still locked on the massive human flagship. No, he said quietly. They didn't just wipe them out. He paused, the air heavy around him. They made the galaxy remember who humans are. As the light faded, sensors showed empty space, but somewhere, beyond the reach of scanners, the void stirred again. A faint vibration, a whisper through subspace. Something ancient was waking up. The part ends with a final transmission echoing through the static. A voice deep and mechanical, older than any race alive. You have returned, humans. Let us see if your fire still burns. The battle was over. The void was quiet again. For the first time in years, the Galactic Alliance saw peace, but no one could understand how. The enemy that had crushed entire civilizations was gone, erased in seconds, and the humans, the ghosts of history, had returned. In the ruins of the Warzone, hundreds of damaged alien ships floated, their crews staring out through broken viewports. They watched the human fleet move silently, like a wall of steel and light. No cheers, no celebrations, only shock and awe. Even the strongest warriors could not describe what they had seen. It wasn't war. It was something beyond war, precise, cold, absolute. Aboard the HSS Leviathan, Admiral Marcus Thane stood before the main viewport. His uniform was black and silver, decorated with no medals, only a single patch, the old Terran symbol of Earth. His eyes were tired, his voice calm. "Send a signal to the survivors," he said. "Medical ships, food, supplies. No one gets left behind." "Yes, Admiral." He turned to his second officer, a young woman with silver implants on her temples, Commander Ilara Cade. "Status of the enemy?" "Nothing left, sir. The Vora fleet is gone. No biosigns, no transmissions." Thane nodded slowly, but his expression didn't change. "That's what worries me." Hours later, a communication request came from the Galactic Alliance flagship, a damaged cruiser named Valian. The image flickered onto the screen. Captain Rilvor, still alive, still in disbelief. "Admiral Thane," he said respectfully. "On behalf of the Alliance, I don't even know where to begin. You destroyed them. You did in minutes what we couldn't do in years." Thane's voice was calm. "We didn't destroy them. We silenced them. For now." The alien captain frowned. "Then you believe they will return?" "They always return," Thane replied quietly. "You can't kill hunger. You can only delay it." The conversation went silent for a moment. Rilvor finally asked the question that everyone in the galaxy wanted to know. "Where have you been, Admiral? Humanity vanished 100 years ago. We searched your colonies. Your worlds were empty. What happened to you?" Thane turned to the viewport. The reflection of distant stars glimmered in his eyes. "We left," he said softly. "When the wars consumed our worlds, we realized something. We had become too dangerous for the galaxy. And for ourselves." He walked closer to the screen, voice steady. "So we went beyond the rim, into the void where no light reaches. We built our new home there. The fleet became our world. Our families, our children, our civilization, all carried inside steel." Rilvor listened silently. "You built your home in ships?" Thane nodded. "The stars became our oceans. We learned patience. We learned silence. And we watched, always watched, until we saw your distress calls." Commander Ilara stepped forward. "We came back because we knew what you were facing. The Vora, we met them before. They were sleeping then. We thought they were gone." Rilvor's voice trembled. "You mean you fought them before the rest of us?" "Yes," Thane replied. "And the cost was Earth." A heavy silence filled the room, even through the static of the communication feed. The weight of that truth was felt. The humans had lost their home and built an empire from their ashes, far from the war zone. In a dark sector beyond any known chart, the Vora stirred, deep inside a hollow moon. Black tendrils moved through liquid metal. Machines whispered in a dead language, a central core lit up, 1,000 red eyes blinking awake. "Signal detected," a mechanical voice echoed. "Human technology. Evolved. Adapting protocols, the swarm began to rebuild. The war wasn't over. Back aboard the Leviathan, Admiral Thane stood before his crew. Hundreds of officers filled the command hall, men and women born in space, hardened by silence. "We didn't come back to conquer," Thane said. "We came back because this galaxy once gave us a chance to survive. Now it's our turn to return that gift." The room was quiet, but their faces were full of pride. "The Vora will return," he continued. "Stronger, smarter, and when they do, we'll be ready. Because we are humanity, and we never run twice." Later, alone in his quarters, Thane looked at an old photograph, faded, cracked from a world long gone. It showed a small blue planet, a young woman smiling beside a lake. He whispered softly, "We're still fighting, Maya, for all of them." Outside his window, the human fleet formed new lines, preparing to move deeper into the dark. Every engine burned blue, casting long shadows over the stars. The AI voice filled the silence. "Admiral, long-range sensors detecting energy buildup in uncharted space. Coordinates match previous Vora signal sources." Thane exhaled slowly. "Then it begins again." He looked out at the fleet. Hundreds of ships, ready, united, unstoppable. "Send word to all captains," he said. "Operation Soulfire is active. The galaxy will not burn again." The engines flared, light filling the void. The Terran battle fleet vanished into hyperspace, heading straight toward the darkness that waited beyond the stars. But deep inside that darkness, the Vora hive whispered in reply, "Humans have returned. Let them come. This time, the stars will feed us." The Terran battle fleet moved through the void like a storm made of metal and silence. Thousands of ships, perfectly aligned, engines glowing blue against the endless dark. Every sensor, every weapon, every eye locked on one target, the Vora. But even the humans didn't know what they were about to face. 3 days after Operation Soulfire began, the fleet reached the Charon Expanse, a dead region of space where no light escaped. Sensors showed only static. No stars, no signals, no reflection. Commander Alara Cade frowned at her console. "No readings, Admiral. It's like the light itself disappears inside." Admiral Marcus Thane stood at the center of the bridge, his eyes fixed on the black horizon. "That's their nest," he said quietly. "That's where the Vora sleep." He looked around the bridge. "All ships, power to stealth. Prepare deep-range probes. Let's see what we're walking into." The first probe entered the dark zone. Its signal flickered once, twice, then vanished. Seconds later, another followed. Same result. Then the Leviathan's sensors detected something strange. Light, bending, energy, draining space itself, collapsing inward. "Admiral, gravitational distortions," Ilara shouted. "Something's feeding on the probe's energy." Thane's voice remained calm. "Retract the fleet. Pull back 20 clicks." But before they could move, the darkness began to move. At first, it looked like shadows twisting through fog. Then those shadows formed shapes, long skeletal structures, glowing faintly with red veins. They weren't ships. They were alive. Hundreds of Vora constructs emerged, long metal tendrils, spiked armor, and glowing eyes like dying stars. They didn't fly, they flowed, as if space itself bent around them. "My God," whispered an officer. "They're eating the light." On the main screen, a nearby star began to fade, its brightness devoured like flame swallowed by water. "They're feeding," Thane said quietly. "Just like before." The Leviathan opened fire, a single pulse of blue plasma. The beam struck one of the creatures, but instead of breaking, it absorbed the blast. The Vora's body glowed brighter, stronger. "They adapted," Ilara shouted. "They're turning our energy into fuel." Thane clenched his fists. "Then we stop feeding them." He turned to the fleet communication system. "All ships, cease fire. Switch to kinetic weapons only. Load mass drivers. Target the largest clusters." Thousands of railguns fired at once. Metal slugs cut through the void, piercing Vora bodies, shattering limbs, sending fragments drifting away. But for every creature destroyed, 10 more appeared. They came from the darkness, endless, hungry. Inside the command deck, the lights flickered. The ship's AI spoke in a low voice. Warning, energy loss detected. Systems draining. The Vora weren't just outside. They were inside, draining energy through the void itself. Meanwhile, on the Valian, Captain Rilvor watched in horror as the human fleet fought like gods. Their precision, their calm, their bravery, it was beyond anything he'd ever seen. "They're still holding the line," his officer said. "Even surrounded," Rilvor nodded slowly. "They're not fighting to win," he said. "They're buying us time." He looked at the glowing human formation in the distance. "But what for?" Back on the Leviathan, the ship shook violently. Panels exploded. Crew shouted orders through the smoke. Elara gritted her teeth, trying to stabilize the main reactor. "Admiral, we can't hold much longer. The Vora are everywhere." Thane's voice was steady. "Then we make them remember who they're fighting." He turned to the AI. "Activate Helios Protocol." "Warning," the AI responded. "Helios Protocol will ignite all stored fusion cores within a 1,000-kilometer radius." "I know," Thane said. "Do it." The Leviathan's hull began to glow, heat radiating like a newborn sun. All around it, the Vora swarmed closer, their tendrils wrapping around the ship, feeding. Then came the light. A shockwave burst outward, silent, white, pure. Hundreds of Vora ships turned to dust instantly. The darkness cracked open, revealing the faint shimmer of stars again. But even as the light faded, sensors showed movement deep inside the dark zone. Something far larger was awakening. The bridge went quiet. Ilara's voice trembled. "Admiral?" "What is that?" A shadow filled the screen, larger than a planet, moving slowly, breathing. Its eyes glowed like twin suns. "That," Thane said softly, "is their core." A deep mechanical voice echoed through the comms, a voice older than any civilization. "Humans, you burned our children. Now we burn your stars." The Leviathan's systems went dark. Every light turned red. A wave of energy began to spread from the creature's core, consuming everything it touched. Thane looked at his crew, calm even in the face of death. "Prepare the fleet." "We're not done yet," Ilara whispered. "But, sir, how do we fight something that eats light?" Thane looked out at the dark horizon, his voice like iron. "We bring a bigger fire." The human fleet began to regroup, engines flaring as they prepared their next strike. Far away, the alien survivors watched in silence, hope and fear mixing in their hearts. No one knew if the humans could win. No one knew if anyone would survive. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never forget what it saw that day. The day humanity returned. To fight the darkness itself. The darkness hung like a wound in space. The Vora core had awakened. A creature so massive that its shadow covered stars. Entire systems went silent as it spread its energy field, devouring everything made of light or life. Inside the Terran flagship Leviathan, alarms echoed through the halls. Systems were failing. The air was thin. And yet, no one on board showed fear. Admiral Marcus Thane stood in front of the command screen, watching the Vora swarm regrow around their monstrous leader. "They think they can drown us," he said quietly. "Let's show them what happens when humanity fights back." Across the fleet, every ship captain received a single encrypted message. Operation Soulfire, authorization code, Omega Black. The plan had been made years ago. When Earth first learned of the Vora, it was humanity's last resort. A weapon built not to win, but to erase. Captain Ilara Cade, still injured but refusing to rest, turned to her crew. "You heard the signal. We're going to light the stars on fire." The Leviathan's crew knew what that meant, using the fusion cores of every Terran warship to create one synchronized explosion. Powerful enough to destroy the Vora core, but the cost would be everything. Far from the battlefield, the alien coalition fleet, what was left of them, hovered in stunned silence. They had seen the humans fight. They had seen them fall. Now they watched as the humans began to form strange patterns in space, perfect geometric lines and orbits. Captain Rilvor stared at the holographic map. "What are they doing?" He whispered. An older alien scientist answered with awe in his voice. There, aligning their ships with the gravitational flow. They're turning themselves into a weapon. Rilvor's throat tightened. They're sacrificing themselves. On the Leviathan's bridge, silence filled the air. Every officer, every soldier, every AI subsystem knew what was coming. Thane opened a comms channel, broadcasting to all human ships. His voice was calm, heavy, human. This is Admiral Marcus Thane, commanding the Terran Defense Fleet. If you can hear this, remember, we are not fighting for victory. We are fighting for the right to exist. He paused, eyes on the black horizon where the Vora core pulsed. They devour light. They consume hope, but they forget. Humanity was born in darkness. We learned to light our own fire. He raised his hand. Operation Soulfire. Begin. Engines roared. Thousands of ships, from massive dreadnoughts to small frigates, ignited their cores. Their positions formed a massive ring around the Vora core, like a halo of fire around a god of death. The enemy responded instantly. Millions of Vora creatures surged forward, screaming through the vacuum, their energy spikes cutting through space like black lightning. Explosions filled the void. Human ships shattered one by one, but each ship's destruction added more fuel to the growing light. Alara shouted through static, "Admiral!" They're hitting the outer ring. Thane's voice came back calm but urgent. Hold formation. Every second counts. In the middle of chaos, something unexpected happened. The alien fleets began to move. Rilvor, watching the humans burn the sky, clenched his jaw. They fight for us, for all of us. We cannot just watch. He turned to his crew. All ships, form up with the humans. Give them cover! And for the first time in galactic history, alien ships fought alongside humanity. Different races, different worlds, united under one blazing purpose. Their weapons struck the Vora swarm, their shields interlocked with human ships. Together, they formed a living wall of fire and courage. Inside the Leviathan, Ilara looked at the power readouts. Reactor at 300% overdrive. We're going to lose containment. Thane looked out at the black void. Then we take them with us. He opened one last private channel, a message to Earth. Tell them, we saw the darkness. We faced it, and we were not afraid. He looked at Ilara. It's been an honor, Commander. The honor's mine, sir, she said softly. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The light grew brighter, spreading through the human formation like sunrise across a dead world. 7, 6. The Vora core moved, sensing danger. It unleashed a beam of black energy, piercing through the fleet, destroying everything in its path. But still, the humans didn't stop. 5, 4. The alien ships pushed forward, taking the hits meant for their human allies. They burned but held. 3, 2. The Vora screamed, an ancient cosmic howl that shook the stars. 1, and then came the light. It wasn't an explosion. It was rebirth, a wave of energy so pure, so bright, it erased the darkness. The Vora core split apart, massive cracks tearing through its black surface. The creatures turned to dust, their energy dissolving into the void. The galaxy watched as the Terran fleet disappeared in the light they created. A supernova of courage, sacrifice, and defiance. When the light faded, silence filled the stars. No Vora, no humans. Only ashes glowing faintly in the endless dark. But then one small distress signal blinked. A single human ship. Survived. The Leviathan's core had partially ejected before the blast. Inside, Ilara Cade opened her eyes to the faint glow of life support. "Admiral," she whispered. No response. Only the hum of the ship. She looked out through the cracked window at a sky full of new light, and she smiled. "We did it." Silence. That was all that remained after Operation Soulfire. The stars that had gone dark for centuries now glowed again. Faint, but alive. The black cloud of the Vora was gone, scattered into dust drifting across the void. And floating alone in that silence was what was left of the Leviathan. The once mighty flagship of humanity was now a broken ghost, half the hull torn away, Engines dead, and its bridge cracked open to the stars. Inside, Commander Elara Cade slowly opened her eyes. Cold air filled her lungs. Every breath was pain. The emergency lights blinked weakly, painting everything red. She pushed herself up, her body shaking. "Admiral?" she whispered. No reply. Only static. She crawled to the nearest console. The ship's AI flickered to life, voice faint, damaged. "Commander Cade, systems at 3%. Oxygen supply critical. How long can we survive?" she asked, her voice trembling. 6 hours. Perhaps less. Elara closed her eyes. She could still see the light of the explosion. Still hear the Admiral's final words, "We are not afraid." For the first time since the war began, she was truly alone. Outside, debris drifted silently, twisted metal, shattered armor, fragments of what once was the Terran fleet. But the wreckage was strangely calm. No movement, no sign of the enemy, just the soft golden light spreading through the stars. Elara looked out through the cracked viewport. "You did it, Admiral," she whispered. "You saved them." But then a sound, a faint ping, echoed through the empty ship. A distress beacon. Not from her ship, from somewhere else. Elara froze. "AI, locate the source. Signal identified. Origin, unknown Terran frequency. Coordinates, 500 kilometers off our starboard bow." Her heartbeat quickened. Could it be survivors? Possibility. 41%. Without another thought, she forced herself to the navigation console. The engines were dead, but the maneuvering thrusters still worked, barely. She rerouted power manually, sparks flying as wires overloaded. Hang on," she whispered to the ship. "We're not done yet." The Leviathan drifted slowly toward the signal, like a dying whale crossing an endless ocean. Minutes passed like hours. Every system flickered. Every alarm screamed. Finally, through the shattered glass, Elara saw it, a small object floating among the wreckage. At first, it looked like a broken escape pod. But as she drew closer, she realized it wasn't Terran. The metal was alien, smooth, black, and faintly glowing with blue lines. "AI, is that one of ours?" "Negative. Composition unknown. Energy signature. Partially human," Elara frowned. "Partially human?" Then the pod cracked open, and a wave of light filled the room. A hologram appeared in front of her, the shape of a man. Admiral Marcus Thane. His voice was calm, gentle, but distorted. "If you're seeing this, it means Operation Soulfire succeeded. And it means I didn't make it." Elara covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. "Listen carefully," the hologram continued. "The Vora core wasn't a creature. It was a prison. A shell built to contain something older. Something we didn't destroy." He paused. "When the explosion hit, a part of that energy attached itself to us. To our ships." "To me," Elara whispered. "Admiral, what do you mean?" "We called it light. But it's more than that. It's alive." The hologram flickered, and suddenly the alien pod beside her began to glow brighter, almost breathing. "It's searching for a new home," Thane's voice said softly. "A place to grow? Protect it, Elara. It carries the last piece of humanity." The hologram faded, leaving her alone again, staring at the glowing core inside the pod. For a long moment, she didn't move. The glow was warm, comforting, even in the cold. When she touched the glass, she felt a pulse, like a heartbeat. "You're not just light, are you?" she whispered. "You're us." Suddenly, the AI spoke. "Commander." "Incoming vessels detected. Multiple signatures, non-human." Her heart stopped. "The Vora?" "Negative. Unknown configuration." Elara turned toward the viewport and gasped. Dozens of ships were approaching, sleek and silver, their engines leaving trails of blue fire. Alien, but not hostile. At the front of the formation was Captain Rilvor's ship. His voice came through the comms, trembling. "Commander Cade, by the stars you're alive." Elara almost laughed through her tears. "Barely, but the Admiral, he left something behind." "Then hold on," Rilvor said. "We're bringing you home." Hours later, the alien fleet surrounded the damaged Leviathan, towing it towards safe space. Inside the bridge, Elara sat beside the glowing pod, her hands resting on the glass. She whispered softly, "You said you'd light the stars again, Admiral." Looks like you kept your word. Outside, the stars shone brighter than they had in centuries. And deep inside the pod, the light pulsed, growing stronger with every heartbeat. Something new was being born, something that carried the fire of humanity. Days passed. The Leviathan drifted slowly through the silent stars, surrounded by the alien fleet that had rescued it. Inside, Commander Ilara Cade watched the strange glowing pod, the one the Admiral's message had left behind. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Blue, white, then gold. Each time it glowed, the lights on the Leviathan flickered back to life for a few seconds. The ship was healing. But no one understood how. Captain Rilvor's fleet had set up a small base on a nearby moon, a refuge for survivors of the war. Dozens of species gathered there, repairing their ships, mourning their dead, and whispering the same words. The humans saved us all. Every alien knew the story now, how the Terran fleet had burned itself away to destroy the Vora, but none of them could explain the strange light that still moved among the wreckage. When Ilara brought the pod to the moon's surface, the scientists surrounded it immediately. They scanned, measured, and debated, but none could agree. Some called it a miracle, others a warning. Rilvor found Ilara standing alone by the pod that night, staring up at the twin moons above. "You haven't slept," he said quietly. "I can't," she replied. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the Admiral. I hear his voice." Rilvor tilted his head, his alien eyes reflecting the soft glow of the pod. "You humans are strange. You destroy yourselves. Yet somehow you never really die." Ilara gave a tired smile. "Maybe that's what we're best at, surviving what should have killed us." The pod pulsed brighter, as if it heard her words. The next morning, the scientists began to panic. Energy readings spiked. Gravity waves rippled through the base. Machines failed as the pod's glow grew stronger, filling the entire chamber with golden light. Ilara and Rilvor rushed in as alarms blared. "What's happening?" she shouted. A scientist turned terrified. "It's reacting to something. It's calling out, but not to us." Before anyone could stop it, the pod lifted into the air, floating silently. The metal casing cracked open, revealing a sphere of pure light. Inside the glow, shapes began to form, outlines of ships, figures, and faces. Ilara gasped. "Those are humans," Rilvor finished softly. One by one, ghostly images appeared, the entire Terran fleet shining like memories made of starlight. The Leviathan, the Oberon, the Vigilant, every lost ship from Operation Soulfire stood there, reborn in light, and then from the center, a familiar voice echoed. "Ilara!" She turned, tears filling her eyes. "Admiral Thane!" The glowing figure of the Admiral stood before her, not flesh and blood, but something greater. "You carried it," he said softly. "The fire we left behind, and now it's ready." Ilara's voice broke. "Ready for what?" "To begin again." The light expanded, filling the entire sky. Every creature, every ship, every being across the system looked up as the darkness faded, replaced by a new sunrise in space. Moments later, the pod shattered, and the energy poured into the ground, spreading across the moon like water. Every dead plant began to grow again. The air shimmered with warmth, and above, new stars blinked into existence. It wasn't destruction anymore. It was rebirth. The humans had not died. They had become something more. Energy, memory, light itself. Rilvor stepped beside Ilara, awe written across his face. "Is this your species?" Ilara nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "This is humanity. Not in flesh, but in spirit." Days later, the first new colony ships launched, human designs built with alien hands. The galaxy, once divided by fear, now stood united under one banner, the Soul Alliance. The memory of the Terran fleet became legend. Every world told their children the same story. They entered the war zone. They faced the darkness. They burned brighter than the stars. And somewhere beyond known space, a ripple of golden light still moved. A sign that the humans who sacrificed everything still watched over the living. Ilara remained on the moon, standing where the pod had once rested. A gentle wind blew, carrying the scent of new life. She closed her eyes and whispered into the stars, "We kept your fire, Admiral, and we'll never let it die." In the distance, the stars shimmered, almost as if they answered her. The light of humanity would never fade again, because even in death, they had learned how to live forever.